Hello and welcome to the virtual edition of our year-round screening series, Film Independent Presents, and this Q&A for IFC Films Little Fish by Chad Hartigan. I'm Jen Wilson, Senior Programmer with Film Independent. Before we get started, I have to give some praise to some of our supporters. Thank you to our incredible lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and our screening partners, Vision Media. For those of you watching live today, please take advantage of the question box at the bottom of your screen and submit some questions for our moderator to ask our guests towards the end of the Q&A today. And now please welcome today's moderator. He's the awards columnist and chief film critic for Deadline, Pete Hammond.
All right, thanks so much. And thank you for the applause there, Chad. Welcome everybody, and I hope you enjoyed Little Fish. Lots to talk about with this film. So as she said, please put your questions in the Q&A feature here on Zoom, and I'll be sure to try and ask them after we do this first discussion here. And I want to introduce our panel here. First up, he is the director of the film, Chad Hartigan. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Congratulations. The film is opening today, if I can say
Yes.
that in this world of a pandemic that we're in here. It's being available to be seen by everybody, which is terrific. And you brought along 3 of your cast members. First up, everybody knows him from so many films and projects that he's been involved with. He plays Jude in the film. Jack O'Connell, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, yeah. You?
Good, very good, very good. And as Ben, Raúl Castillo.
Hello there, Pete.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. And then, of course, she plays Sam in the film, and that's Soko.
Hello, everyone.
And thank you for dressing up today, Soko.
My pleasure. Out of my sweatpants into a dress.
You've brightened up this Zoom webinar, no end. Let me start with you, Chad, in how this film came about, because look, I'm going to ask the obvious question here. We are in the midst of the 900th year of it seems like, of a pandemic that has been going on and on worldwide. And boy, the timeliness of this, creating a global epidemic where people's memories are gone. You know, there's so much more watching this film now than maybe there would have been if we'd seen it a year and a half ago, or even a year ago.
Yeah. The genesis of it is that it's a short story written by a girl named Asia Gable in 2011. So a long time ago. And then it was adapted into a script by Mattson Tomlin, probably in 2017, maybe. And I first read it in 2018. And we shot it in 2019. And it's being released in 2021. And yeah, I mean, at the time when we made it, it was a science fiction film. It was a real, like, use your imagination. What would it be like if you were in this type of situation? How would you behave? What would you do? And the fact that it's no longer science fiction is hard for, I think, all of us who worked on it to really wrap our heads around, like, what it must be like to watch for the very first time now. It's so different from what we imagined.
Yeah, it's so I mean, when you call it, you know, that it was a science fiction film, it seems to be many different kinds of films. If we're talking about themes or labels here, you know, apocalyptic sci-fi for sure, you know, drama. It's a very solid drama, very solid romantic drama. It's a thriller that you've weaved in here. All sorts of elements.
Horror movie even.
Yeah, a horror movie. all of these things. How do you particularly look at it as the director?
Well, I think the one thing that served us well is that even from the beginning, I looked at it first and foremost as a romance. It's a love story, and the pandemic, the science fiction, the thriller elements were the backdrop. And I think that's what's kept it from being unreleasable, and in fact, maybe actually being kind of cathartic and poetic for people to watch now is because it's first and foremost about love and takes a real sincere, earnest look at two people desperately trying to save a relationship in the midst of unprecedented circumstances. And that's something that we all can relate to now. But I even related to it then. When I first read it, I was, my girlfriend was pregnant with our first child. And so there was a lot of love and optimism and hope in my personal life. But the outside world, it just seemed like every time you turn on the news, it was nothing but bad news. There were like children locked in cages on the border, and climate change was getting out of control. And it was just like trying to live day to day, reconciling the fact that there's a lot of love in my house and there's a lot of doom and gloom in the outside world. And so I thought if I could sort of capture that feeling of the world that I felt like I could capture the world metaphorically crumbling around me. And in the movie, it's more literal, but that's what I was drawn to at first. And those themes remain now. And I think everyone can relate to them more.
Yeah, and the romance, as you say, is key to it, to focusing on them and letting everything else come around that. But that is the center of this, of letting us, the audience, get into this world and into this story.
And I think Mattson was really smart to keep all of the world building and all the science fiction and all the outside world stuff to be limited to just what directly affects the characters. And if they don't see it firsthand, we don't see it. Or if they don't see it on a TV, we don't see it. And we really just keep the focus on them and their world and the way that the outside world is knocking on their door and like slowly crushing the walls around them. So that's why they're forced to pay attention to it. But otherwise, they would just really be trying to get through each day, blocking it out.
Yeah, and even though this is written as a global epidemic where everybody is possibly exposed to it, there is the thing about Alzheimer's lurking here that makes it extremely real for people who've ever gone through that and trying to hang on to any semblance of a relationship or any kind of thing that they had before, that makes this doubly poignant in its own way.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually, I think, a couple more lines in the script that we shot that didn't end up in the movie that addressed the direct parallels to Alzheimer's a bit more. But yeah, that was obvious from the get-go. But we also tried to make sure that we were fictionalizing this disease and not trying to, be insensitive to an actual real disease that real people are dealing with, and make sure that this was its own thing.
Can you talk about the casting? You were very lucky to get Jack O'Connell and Olivia Cooke, who couldn't be here today, so we can talk trash about her. But they were both great, and she's terrific, and so is he. So how did that come about in casting the film?
Yes, I agree. Very lucky. And Olivia was on it from almost the very beginning, long before I was. She is a producer on the film as well, and helped Mattson in the writing. Mattson knew he was writing it for her, and asked for her input. She says that the only input she gave was to let her use her real accent for once, and that's what he did. But who knows? Maybe she gave a few more extra notes. I don't know. But so she's been on it a long time. And then actually, Jack was on it before I was too. I was kind of the last piece of the puzzle because there was another director on it first, and then they had to leave and I replaced them. And I think the producers were a little bit worried that maybe it would be tough to find a director on a movie that was already cast. And I was like, are you kidding me? If this movie wasn't cast, these would be the two exact people you would spend months trying to hound and cast. So this is a gift to have them already in place. So that was very lucky. And then I did cast Raúl and Soko. I can take full credit for that.
All right, Jack. So you were in there even before Chad. So what was it about this script? Would you get a lot of that made you want to do it?
I think it was. I think at the centre, I have a very you have a couple that are at a very exciting stage of their relationship. Obviously, the timeline is jumped around a lot, but it's very it's just particularly potent that part of their journey together, and we see them meet, and we see them fall for each other, and we see them get married, and then unfortunately the pandemic hit. So yeah, I think even removing the pandemic element, there was just something that drew me to how Emma and Jude were written, and there wasn't an attempt for this sort of faux perfection where you shy away from people's flaws, and within the script there seemed like an ability to enjoy the bad parts a little bit, and sort of appreciate them as human, and so that's a credit to the writing. And I knew that Olivia was attached, and then you sort of acknowledge again this sort of pandemic element, and that raising the stakes altogether, just sort of putting this couple that I felt that when you're reading it, you really root for their friends. It's just very organic, and a chance to do something that typically you'd expect to see on a massive scale, big worldwide pandemic type movie, but an opportunity to really hone in and focus on this couple that, along with their close friends, are just being completely wiped out by this disease. And then obviously that was at a time when we had no notion that the world would face a similar scenario. It's quite freaky to think that we were there shooting something in a similar vein to what the reality is now.
It definitely makes you think about what can happen in this world.
What did he know? What did Mattson know? What did Ija know that we didn't?
Exactly. It's interesting. Every independent film, every major film, every kind of film you want to describe takes obviously years to come to fruition, but there's something fated for this movie to come now, I think. And I love the fact that Jude is a photographer, because photos figure so importantly into this story in particular. What do you think about that, Jack, and that profession, and how that figures in here?
I think it's quite poetic. I think it's quite a poetic part of the whole kind of story, is that the emphasis that gets put on his profession and his need, and it's vital. He has to then take photos. What he was doing as a job becomes his only way of remembering, and his only chance of combating the inevitable, really. But I also thought that about Emma's role as a vet, and you're seeing the effect that it has on pets.
Oh yeah.
And I love the musical element too. I just love the musical element. I love that they had this commonality between them, and Jude's role within that was photography. Ben was a musician. Through just this common sort of interest, just helped kind of realize them a little bit more for me. Ultimately, I think it makes you it gives you an entry point in getting to know the central characters.
Well, music that you mentioned is obviously key, and it's obviously key to Raúl's and Soko's contributions here too. Talk about Ben here and what he goes through, and what that is like to play in that sense, of how that character evolves in this film, and the musical aspect.
I mean, the musical aspect I've been playing in bands since I was a kid, so I was excited to finally get to play musician on screen, to get to put that to use. I never did, so it was fun to get to play musician. But as you know, Ben being the first one to contract the disease in this friend group and sort of experience this like loss of memory. I mean, it was you know, quintessential to the storyline, and definitely something that I think required a lot of care, as you know, and how we portray that, and I think we had you know, I think we had fun kind of making, you know, building the relationships, Soko and I working together and creating Ben and Sam, and you know, and their and who they are as together with Chad, like who they are as musicians, and then what the loss means, you know, and you know, you know, the loss of memory means to him in particular.
In this, yeah, and creating that relationship with Soko's character
Mm.
Sam here. Had you two known each other before, or did you, like many
No,
actors, walk
We
on the
didn't
set, say
met
hello, how are
in
you? You
Vancouver.
know, we're together.
Actually, wait, no. Actually, that's not what happens. Raúl emailed me and we emailed back and forth, and it was the sweetest correspondence I've ever had in my life. He was like, hi, I have this many brothers and sisters. This is what I love to eat. This is my favorite color. This is a good memory from my childhood. And like all these things that I was like, each time I got an email from him, I was with my girlfriend, I'd be like, look at this email. This guy is brilliant. I cannot wait to meet him. So we exchanged a few emails back and forth, and we had a little FaceTime call before we met in Vancouver. And then I don't know, it made it sort of very romantic, you know, like it was very all online and stuff. But then when we met, I think we were both like super excited, and
yeah.
very sweet. It was very easy. I love working with you. I would so
Yeah,
much, so much.
amazing. I think because the film is just a slice of, you know, it's such a look into this slice of life, really, and we have a limited amount of time to kind of create life and relationships, and we have to invest, and the audience has to be invested in this romantic love, and certainly Ben and Sam are sort of like, you know, who Jude and Emma kind of have to, you know, bounce off of, and we have to, because we have such little time, we have to create intimacy, and I think Chad, like, kind of putting us together and making sure that we, you know, had met before we landed in Vancouver was integral. I mean, I think it's like casting, they say, is so much of it, and you know, Mattson, along with Asia's, I mean, I think our characters weren't even in the original short story. I think there was something that Mattson added to the feature script, but I think it was really smart because you start to, you know, you start to build the audience's relationship to loss and love, and you know, with these characters, and we had such a limited amount of time to do it, and it was important that we were like, we got this. This either works or it doesn't, and it just did. I mean, thankfully, we're so lucky, you know.
Well, Soko, of course, is very well known in the world of music as well, obviously, and created a song here for it. What inspired you from the script and everything in writing that song?
Well, actually, the song was already written.
Ah.
I just came and Chad, do you want to talk about Keegan?
Well, Keegan is the guy that composes the scores for all my films, and is also a singer-songwriter. So when the script said that there was going to be this song, I knew that he could do it. But we also knew that we were going to probably want to cast a musician in the part, and so we wanted to keep it open for them to collaborate or contribute. So, but time was running out, and Keegan did write a song that we all kind of loved. And then when Soko was cast, I sent it to her, and I was like, this is the first draft of what we're thinking, and she loved it. But then we sent her over to Keegan's house to both record singing it, and then she did some rewriting on the lyrics there, and they did end up collaborating a little bit.
Yeah, it was lovely. I mean, I love the song so much, so I'm very happy that I not only got to be in this film with you guys, but also do something musically that I'm also super proud of on top of the film.
Yeah,
the song actually was a bigger deal in the script, and then I you know, I won't say why, but
I would love to know why.
ended up cutting some of it. Just it's Olivia's fault. We'll just say it's Olivia's fault somehow.
Okay.
But yeah, the song, we all love the song very, very much, and it was meant to be in the movie. The version that Soko recorded was meant to be in the movie, and it didn't end up being in the movie, but it is available to listen and on the soundtrack and all that.
And Soko, as for the character of Sam, what about that? What about playing her?
I mean, it's such a tragic position to be in, to, you know, what everyone is experiencing in this film, like the loss of the person you love not remembering you and being subjected to that. I mean, there was so many layers of like the friendship with Olivia and wanting to be supported to her character, and also just seeing my partner just act violent towards me and all of that. Like my audition that I had to send was like the scene where I say that he just tried to stab me and he doesn't recognize me, and already just doing the audition I was like, I hope I get this is so good, I want to do it so bad. And so yeah, I mean, I love this whole world, and I was a new mom. My son was 3 months when we shot, and I had to breastfeed every 2 hours, and Chad was probably the most feminist person I've ever met on set. So all women out there, if you want a super awesome director to work with, here's one. He's a man, but he's like no other. And he definitely let me have so much freedom in my transition from simply motherhood to getting back to work as an actress. And very grateful for that. Thank you, Chad.
Very well. Listen to that, Chad. That's
Well, my girlfriend was pregnant during the shoot and gave birth during the shoot, so I was very, I think, extra sympathetic to the new mom worlds.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the technique of shooting this. It's a nonlinear story, and you're not using a lot of effects. You're shooting a lot of it in camera, using kind of primitive techniques, you know, in this digital age of Vaseline and, you know, prisms and different things. Explain the technique to show past and present and tell the aspects of the story that way.
Yeah, well, we knew that we were going to be dealing with 3 different timelines: the present, the past, and then maybe a false version of the past. And the first thing that my cinematographer, Sean, who I also work with all the time, and I talked about is, what are we going to do about these 3 different timelines? And we decided really early on that we did not want to make very big visual differences, stylized differences between the 3. We didn't want you to instantly know where you were. It was better if they could kind of free flow in and out of each other, so that at the end of the movie, when you thought back on it, it felt like all like one long memory or dream or thought. And if it took you a minute to realize that you were in the past or you were in the false version of the past, then that's fine, that's great. But we would rather let the performances and the behavior and what the actors were doing and saying be the thing that clued you into where you were in the story of their relationship, not us doing some crazy camera tricks. And that was really inspired by this movie called Two for the Road with Audrey Hepburn and Albert Finney.
I had no idea that. When people ask me my all-time favorite movie, that's what I say. I have a big poster in this house of Two for the Road, a movie that, in terms of your techniques, is interesting that you bring that up, because that's going around in different ways, but using the actors basically to show us where they are in a 12-year marriage.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was inspired by that, and yeah, so we wanted to shy away from like sort of the Steven Soderbergh traffic technique of like instantly you know where you are because it's tinted blue or whatever, something like that. And the few effects that we did do, we wanted to try and be creatives. And again, we were inspired by West Side Story from 1961, where they, in the big dance scene when Tony and Maria see each other, they just like put some Vaseline on the lens to highlight those 2 characters, and everybody else kind of fades out. And it looks so cool and effective. So we stole that and came up with a few other neat things. But but generally speaking, wanted it to feel like you could kind of weave in and out of all the different timelines seamlessly.
Well, you're a cinematic thief of all the best movies. So, you
Yeah.
can be proud of that. I'm curious, before I go to the questions that we have from those who are joining us watching this, the script was one thing, and then you get in the editing room with Josh Crockett, your editor, and would seem to me to be so many ways to reshape this from what the original screenplay might be. Did you do this? Was this like a whole puzzle for you that you started to put together in an editing room?
Yeah, and exactly because of what I just described, we had a little bit more freedom to move scenes around because they didn't have like such a strict visual marker to them, and we moved things around a lot. It was a blessing and a curse. We could have edited it for 10 more months and tried 10 million other different things. And it was already in the script that it was going to be nonlinear and jump around. So it's not like we invented that in editing, but we definitely took it to another place. And I would say maybe like 60% of the scenes are where they are in the script, and the other 40% are somewhere that they were not in the script.
Really?
We just try to hold true to is the arc of their relationship, and the feeling of his decline and them getting closer and closer together, trying to cling on harder and harder. Is that feeling like it's on the right trajectory, and everything else can work around that?
You know, I'm curious too for actors. They sign on, they read a script, they think they know what they're doing, but they're putting their whole life in the hands of the director here and those making the film. Jack, I'm wondering, having read the script and then seeing the finished film, what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Chad's saying, I'm kind of hearing for the first time. And probably if I was more astute as an actor, these are conversations that I probably put more would make priority early on. Chad was saying about, you know, us two physically getting closer together as the story is unfolding and trying to grip onto each other. I had no notion that was happening at all.
Yeah, you did, but you knew it in regards to your characters, not the movie.
I didn't realize it was part of the mise en scène. Well, again, we're shooting out of chronological order, so
yeah. There was one time, I do remember one time where I tried to really be very clear with the actors if we were doing some weird stuff, but there was one time where we were setting up the camera and Jack was standing in the room, and he was just like, "Why am I standing here?" And I just had to be like, "Just trust me, it'll work out." But it did get a little confusing when we were filming some of these like flashback and memory sequences.
Kind of. Yeah. That's the trade-off, isn't it, brother?
Yeah.
Well, it all worked out in the end, I think. Okay, I'm going to now take a look at some of these questions. I'll just read them. From Jay Schumacher. Even though it broke my heart on multiple occasions, I absolutely love this film. A perfect double feature for this movie would be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but I'm not sure if my heart could take it. I watched it 1.5 times because I wasn't sure about the ending. Once I realized what to me the ending revealed, and I realized it could be interpreted differently, it left me crushed for both characters, but particularly for Blue. Is there a version of this story where Emma is losing her memory and Jude is trying to keep it together?
Soko, you want to answer that one?
So that's totally yours.
We deliberately kept the ending to be open to interpretation, and so if he's going to format his question with, is there a world where, the answer is yes, absolutely, there's a world where that interpretation is correct. And I want people to take different readings from what happens. That's the goal, and so I'm happy for him to think whatever he wants to think.
Okay, so it's an interactive movie.
Yeah.
We can.
But blue
Hey,
will
I'm
be
glad I
fine.
didn't answer because I would have blown it and be like, "This is the end." But you know how to sell your film.
Blue will be okay no matter what. Blue makes it out, and blue ends up being loved and
It was Blue that
cared
did
for.
It was Blue who did it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Mario asks, the first scene on the beach echoes the last scene. Was that always planned, or did you find an improvised moment to use? Also, Jack and Olivia were a perfectly believable couple. How much time did they have to get to know each other before shooting the film to become a real couple on screen? We know that about Raúl and Soko already, but let's take that part of it, Jack. And how much time did you have to develop this chemistry?
I think we got to Vancouver maybe just over a week before we started rolling on principal photography. So that was the kind of time scale we were afforded to get to know each other. I think that was definitely helped along by the writing, for sure. And Chad facilitated a time where the three of us hung out, turned pages. I think that's a real treat when you get the opportunity to do that. And a lot of the changes we could just kind of, a lot of the stuff that we wanted to either improve for ourselves, it was just, we only had to consult the three of us. It wasn't like Matson wanted to know why we were changing every single syllable, and it only really impacted what the two of us were doing, the stuff that we were concentrating on changing. So that was another key factor. It also helped as well because, you know, Olivia's from not too dissimilar a place to me. You kind of have that commonality, and I don't think that it's based on geography. I just think it's where you're sort of at, and that's luck of the draw. So it meant that we didn't really have to fake a lot of it. Just bought into the roles and what the roles meant for each other, and yeah, you
I
just
always
buy
think
it.
that they had a mutual respect for each other as actors that helped as well. They were genuine fans of each other's work.
It was mutual. just checking. It was mutual. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here speaking highly of her.
Yeah.
It's reciprocated.
It was.
Okay, this is a question for all panelists, or any of you, if you have something to say. Now that you have lived through nearly a year of world-changing pandemic, is there anything that you would go back and change about your film? You know, it's interesting. Steven Soderbergh talked about that in Contagion and said, you know, what really strikes him is he didn't get about the politicization of, you know, mask and how they politicized this whole thing. And he said
It's
that
gonna be like more masks.
Yeah, that surprised him that he didn't think of when they were doing that. And so I think this question is indicating, you know.
Yeah. I am very, very thankful that Jack was wearing his mask correctly in the movie, because we would never hear the end of it if he wasn't. I don't think so. Like if you had asked me last summer, I might have had a different response. But actually now that the movie is coming out and we have had people watch it and hear what they think, it really seems like we shouldn't change a thing, and it's really kind of connecting in not only the way we hoped it always would, but in ways we could never have imagined on top of those. So I think we were just smart and lucky to treat all those details like the details that they were, and not the focus. And I think if we had concentrated any more on the science or the nature of the pandemic or the resulting chaos, then it would have both derailed our movie and opened us up to more mistakes now that it's real. So I'm happy and proud that we had the right idea from the get-go and how to approach the story. And if anything, the pandemic has proved that.
And here's another question. One of the biggest revelations for me with the film was how sudden memory loss can affect someone who's living an intentionally sober lifestyle. Can you talk a little bit about this element? Was there ever more to this part of the story?
No, there was much less, and it was Jack who really pushed to make that part of the character more at the forefront, so he can talk about it.
Yeah. I think I struggle to remember now, but did Aja's version include any sort of addiction element to Jude? I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Originally, it was like, you know, they went on tour and drunk a lot and had to go dry out in Seattle. And I don't know, I just thought that was an area where we could raise the stakes even more. So yeah,
and this came about in those discussions he was talking about. It just like in the last week or so before filming, when we were getting a chance to talk, the three of us together, about the characters and the scenes. We really dove in and improved, I think, both their characters and the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I think because the original script had the tendency, the way Jude was written, it could have been played by anybody. And no offense, Jack, but when Jack came on, Jack made it a character that could only have been played by Jack, and that's what makes good movie characters. That's what separates like characters you really latch onto and remember from ones that just are kind of there.
Okay, and here's the last question from, it looks like Alva. Brilliant movie. Thanks so much to all. My question about all the dogs, how cute they were. Was it difficult filming with the animals? We don't have Olivia here, so you're going to have to.
For me, yes. Working with animals sucks. And I think Jack also had some problems with the dog. And he had to do the most scenes with the dog. The dog was a good dog. You know, let's be real. It was a good dog, and a good actor. But they're always kind of like looking at their teacher to know what to do, and so it becomes really tricky to figure out where you're going to put the teacher. And it was always tricky.
Yeah, you can be that dog was particularly well trained, wasn't it? There wasn't much rogue about that.
You didn't like to improvise, that dog.
You want a dog? Yeah.
Dogs and children. It's always.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Don't work with animals or kids, because.
But there was one day on set where we had about 12 dogs at the kennel in the scene with Olivia working, and that was a lot. But yeah, the dogs are nice. And I apologize to everyone that I made them watch a dog get killed in the movie.
Oh my God. I was just going to ask you. My wife cannot watch Marley and Me or My Dog Skip or Turner and Hooch. And so when I saw this movie, I said, well, I've got to tell you, you've got to tune in a little bit later, because you did it. But I have to say, the way you shot those dogs in that scene you're talking about, you know, they're so soulful. The eyes were so soulful. They were beautifully, you know, chosen, I think.
Yeah, the dog was really, really great, and it was important for us to show this has real harsh effects on the world, and especially with Emma's job. You know, since Jude was a photographer, which is kind of a creative job, even though we didn't make him a super successful one, he still had to grind and do weddings and stuff. But a photographer is like a job you get to have. And we wanted to make sure that at least one of them had a job that you have to have, not that you get to have. And so there was some unpleasantness to her job because of what was going on in the world. And that was important to show.
And I thought you did, and I thought that was interesting, not to get too much into the weeds of this, but that's what critics do, is the way she had to do the numbers and, 3 days, this and that can be translated clearly to the human characters here of how much time is left in this relationship are, it all works on that kind of interesting level once you think about it and put it all together. So congratulations to all of you for doing this film and bringing it to us. It's out there. Tell your friends, and thanks for joining us here at our little independent discussion of independent film